Coming off of the longest first round of the NHL draft we've ever seen, and what was for most a kind of disappointing and boring free agent frenzy. Not boring here in Minnesota Wildland. We've got Joe Smith, Michael Russo. Let's get into it, guys. What was it like in the writer's war room the last couple days?
You know what was weird? I joked with Joe last night for it's just a long day. Like I was exhausted, and then you're kind of like, imagine if they had been actors. It's kind of weird. But I think a lot of it's just because you're sitting at your laptop, texting people and staring at the X machine and all that type of stuff for hours upon hours. But I mean, I think it's what we both expected. Not to be patronizing and condescending right off the hop here, but that's my middle names. But if you didn't know that this was going to be their free agency, you haven't read or listened to Joe and I in a month. We've been warning you. I mean, like, just look at their depth chart and their needs. And I think a lot of us that are around the team feel that it was incumbent on them to not block out some of their kids. Like, it's time to play these guys. So yeah, like, could they have signed Nate Schmidt yesterday? Absolutely. But I think Wild fans that are excited for Z Boyan would rather him here and not down in Iowa. Could they have signed another right shot defenseman yesterday? Absolutely. But I think a lot of us here would like to see David Juracek get a chance. Liam Ohgren, Danila Yurov. They could have signed a backup goalie, but I think a lot of us want to see Volstead. So, but if you look at the depth chart, those were the slots that were allotted to them, and so there just wasn't a lot of openings. And so the one need they needed was a fourth line center that can win draws and maybe kill penalties. And I think they felt with Nico Sturm that they know him, and he was affordable, and he checks both those boxes. So, the one thing that Bill keeps on saying that I think fans are going to hold him to task to is that, all right, you're saving cap space to eventually go big game hunting. And so that's what he's got to do. Like, I don't blame the fans for being disappointed. They were, told 4 years to wait for, July 1st, 2025, and even told by the owner in the fall to do that as well. And it didn't happen, but you can't invent players in free agency. They wanted to sign Brock Boeser. They wanted to. But when they started to get the inkling the day before that Brock had major options, and even I think they were willing to go up to a 6-year term. I think when they realized that he probably was being swayed somewhere else, and now we know Vancouver, I think that they just decided that to pivot and go for Tarasenko. Could they have gone for Mangiapane at less money, younger, couple years? Yeah. But I think they're taking a 1-year bet. They're keeping themselves affordable. That he's tradable at the deadline as well, even though he's got a no trade. But I just think that it's got a modified no trade now. Actually, it changes. But I just think that this is what we expected. But now it's like you kind of hope that, like, all right, keep your eyes open. Is if Cade Thompson, if he finally says enough, get me out of here. If there's other players around the league that Bill has been open, talking about Jack Eichel, Matthew Tkachuk, Nico Rantanen, that big guys get traded in the year. And I just think that free agency has proven that I think every year it's going to be pretty lousy. So now I think he's going to scour the landscape in the trade market for the next year or so.
And I don't think, especially with how you guys prefaced the Tarasenko deal, right? I think a lot of people were prepared. Okay, Boeser's not happening here.
Yeah.
I think the entire hockey landscape was shocked when pretty much right away on July 1st, Brock Boeser signs not only a deal that was maybe a little bit lower than expected, but with the Vancouver Canucks, who was pretty much 32 on everyone's list if they were going to guess where he was going to land. What happened?
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know what's funny? I don't know if you remember, March 7th, I was in Vancouver. I was on that road trip, if you remember, Joe, and that was the day of the trade deadline. And I was at their morning skate, and Brock was out there, and I was live tweeting that Brock was out there. And I actually tweeted that sources were telling me that the Canucks re-engaged with Brock. Now, it obviously didn't happen at that time, but I think that it showed that, one, they had some interest still. I think that when it comes I think what's most fascinating about the Brock Boeser deal, and this might also say something about just how incredibly good Ben Hankinson is as an agent. Like he's to me one of the best in the business. Like everybody gets paid when you go to Ben Hankinson. Like I would, if I was a player, I wish I had him negotiate my athletic deal. Is that you think that's ethical, Joe?
Whatever gets you the bag, man.
Yeah.
So
like I mean, you got Letary and Boyd one-way contracts today. Like the guy's unreal. But what does it say to you that they couldn't even get a third or second round pick for Brock Boeser at the time, or that's what all they were really being offered? And then all of a sudden, Ben goes into yesterday, and he's got 7-year deals at this type of price coming in from everywhere. There were like a lot of teams going after them, including the Wild, were willing to, I think, go up to 6 years on him, maybe 5 or 6 years at a significant AAV. And he winds up going back to Vancouver. But I think what that shows you is how difficult it is to make a trade in today's NHL. Like, I think this goes back to the Wild. Like, I think we all look at, Bill Guerin and people are disappointed that he wasn't able to get trades that materialize. But I think with the cap going up and up and up, I think it's actually going to be harder to make trades. And at the deadline, they couldn't get anything for him. And then he goes into free agency and everybody in the league wants him at significant money. And so it's really fascinating to me that it just shows how difficult right now it is to make a move when this guy was there for the taking at the trade deadline for anybody. They couldn't get a significant offer. Patrick Allvin basically announces that to the world that they couldn't get a significant offer, essentially did it in a disparaging way. I was at the press conference. And then all of a sudden, they come back to him and offer him 7 years at $7.25. Would you guys pause? Is that all right?
A lot of people are talking about, obviously, Boeser choosing to sign in Vancouver and not coming to the Minnesota Wild. But, Joe, a lot of people don't really understand that there's going to be a lot more to it than just Wild choosing not to sign players.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key thing now is everyone's going to have money and cap space going forward. So it's not like they can just overpay people and then that'll be the carrot to bring them to Minnesota. I think you need to create yourself as a destination spot for players to come here and win. I think Mike's had some conversation with players covering the playoffs, and I've talked to other people too on the league about Minnesota, and I think there's a lot of really good vibes as far as like the place to live and raise a family and the market in terms of the fans. But I think people want to see the Wild take another step and win a playoff round, maybe before convincing themselves to make this a long-term spot in free agency. And the good news for the Wild is Nico Sturm did pick to return in Minnesota. Obviously, Tarasenko waived his no-trade clause to come to Minnesota with the assist from Kirill Kaprizov, who chatted with him on the phone on Monday. But Mike, I think that's kind of the key going forward here. With more money in the pockets of the Wild brass, like, can they convince some of these guys to come here free agency or waive a no trade for that big trade in the middle of the season?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is that, like, in today's NHL with the cap going up and up, if they are going to delve into free agency or with 3/4 of the league, it seems, having trade protection, you're constantly going to have to sit there and recruit, but show everybody that you're a destination. And the way to do that is winning. Look, the perception out there is, I know that the Wild are sensitive to this, but look, they've made the playoffs 8 times in the last 10 years, but they've also lost in the first round 8 times in the last 10 years. And I can tell you, like, when I walk into the Florida room now, because I've covered them for 3 playoff rounds and playoff years in a row, like they all know me as somebody that covers the Wild. So they always ask me about the Wild, and they all talk about, and these are big players talking about how they're so good every year in the regular season, but they just can't get over the hump. And I just feel like that's the perception out there. And so until you win, until you show the rest of the league that you can get over that quote unquote hump, it's going to be hard to recruit players in a league where there's 32 great markets, and there's soon going to be 34 great markets, and maybe even 36 soon after that. And they're just going to continue to expand this league. So it's just going to get harder and harder, especially as the cap continues to climb and everybody's got money.
I think that's what's encouraging, I guess, right now, if you're a Wild fan, is that Kirill Kaprizov at least believes that the Wild can win and has been very happy. Obviously, he talked to Tarasenko about coming into play here in Minnesota. It seems like Bill Guerin's been very confident talking to us about signing Kirill to an extension, which he was eligible starting on Tuesday. Mike, what is your sense on kind of where we are in that process and what that number might look like now that we have free agency kind of over?
Well, I thought for a long time that he's signing. He just seemed, everybody I talked to behind the scenes says how much he loves it here. And I know, again, I just said that there's 32 great markets, and maybe he's appealing, finds that appealing somewhere else. But the new CBA rules actually really help the Wild, because the Wild are the one team that could sign him to 8 years, where everybody else in the league, if he goes to free agency on July 1, assuming he's not traded by the Wild before that, he could sign for only 6. So if the Wild traded him to another team, technically next season, then they could sign him to 8 years. So I just think that I don't think Bill and Leopold would be so publicly
confident or optimistic, or
and the other part of me is, like, I know Bill said, like, I got no basis for believing this, okay? But no basis for saying it other than total conjecture. But I know that Bill said that he was talking to his agent the last couple of days. I just wonder if maybe a lot of the homework has been done, and it's just a matter of just figuring out the sorting through everything, and essentially that it's sort of, I don't want to say agreed to, but the one thing is that Kirill's in Moscow right now. And when he signs, the Wild are going to want to do all sorts of bells and whistles, as they should. I would think that they'd want to almost wait to announce something until he's back in the country. I don't know if they'd make him, if he'd want to fly back here just for a couple days to announce something like that. So maybe they're going to, maybe they even just agree to it, and then they have their press conference when he returns here, and we're just going to be waiting until later in the summer or September. That's sort of what happened with Draisaitl last year. Remember?
Yeah, true.
Draisaitl signed right before training camp. It was actually right before, it was probably around September 4th or something, because I remember I was at the NHL Car Wash, the media tour in Vegas, and I was sitting at a table with him with like 3 or 4 other writers, and he had just signed his contract. So it doesn't have to get done right this second. So I do think, like, as I wrote the other day, like I trust the Wild when they are so confident, and I trust him that he wants to stay here. So we'll see.
I think the real move would be to sign him on the 4th and just erase the Parise Suter.
That is a good point. Joe might be not in a condition to write that day, though. So I mean,
making sure
I feel like I'm doing every time I show this. I feel like I'm doing brand. Just go to sodastick.com and get it.
It's crazy. Honestly, I see it, and I think
that's really not why I have it, but sodastick.com. Some of the proceeds go to the children's hospital. Essentially, the way it works is they sell it, and then I get a check, and then I donate it to the children's hospital.
Nice.
The next domino to drop, other than Kirill Kaprizov, Marco Rossi, and we have been writing the last couple of months, Mike, and it has been true that he's been part of trade conversations with other teams. Teams have called the Wild about Marco's availability because they've sensed the contract impasse or stalemate, whatever you want to call it, the Wild have had with Marco. Do you get a sense, like I do, that since we got past the draft and all that stuff like that, while he could get traded, a likely scenario is he does get signed at some point later this summer?
I still don't know. Every time I come on here, I'm expecting to see that 67's jersey disappear, but it's still there. I don't know. I really don't. I know that he says, first of all, when he says he'll match anybody's offer sheet, that's a strategic thing to let everybody else know publicly. I don't know if I totally believe it. Like, if somebody came in and offered him $7.201 million, which is right below that one threshold that goes over the first and third. I just don't see them matching. I don't, because they don't believe he's in that even ballpark, that vicinity. So I think it's just him saying that publicly. So I would take that for a grain of salt. I do think they're going to continue to look. I really do. Because the other issue here that's going to make, I think, bridging the gap really difficult is I don't think their side has a lot of trust that the Wild, they know that the Wild have been trying to trade him. And if he signs a tradable contract, Marco's not going to trust that he's just not going to be traded somewhere else. if that makes sense. So like,
Yeah.
they if it's too low and it's just essentially something that's allowing him extra time to move a very tradable contract, I just don't know if Marco's agent gonna fall for that. So let's see where this goes. I just think that this could be a long process. I know his agent's shopping for offer sheets. So we'll see where it does go. The one thing though is that like another team now, after hearing what Billy said, might just not want to do the offer sheet and then run into him in a back room one day, at meetings, and you go into the bathroom at the Palm Beach in Manalapan, and all of a sudden Billy's at the urinal. You might turn right around and leave.
God. Well, Joe, you mentioned that someone had commented on your post asking about comparing him to Braden Point because of size and point totals early on in their career.
Well, I will say this. What does remind me a little bit of the two is kind of that determination, playing bigger than their size. Like Marco, a lot of his goals are within 5 feet of the net, right? Like he's not afraid to go to those areas, and I think that's what obviously Braden Point has done as well his entire career. He had to fight the label of being too small forever, right? I think Marco's a really good player. I think Braden Point's a superstar.
Yeah.
And Braden Point's a 50-goal scorer. I don't think there's anything wrong with Marco scoring 25 goals. That's a really good player, really good 2-3C to have. But Braden Point, I think his skill set is elite in that respect. So I think there are similarities in terms of, toughness, able to go to the dirty areas for their size, not backing down from anybody. Obviously being able to defend well. Braden Point is a guy who I think if he had the better matchups could be a Selke caliber defender. So, but yeah, I think in that respect, I think Marco, kind of determination, that kind of thing. But I think, Braden Point's I think overall skill set is a step above, of course. And he's proven it in the NHL, 50-goal scorer, one of the top in the league.
And I mean, he's no Louis Belpedio, but he'll serve the bench.
Yeah.
So Russo, whether you want to admit it or not, you basically spoke the Sturm contract into existence. We've talked, you guys have at least said quite a bit in your writing and on X about Tarasenko and why they felt that was the move. Everyone's concern now is, are we pushing the prospects down yet again? Mm-hmm. Where do you see them slotting in? And do you think that that's a valid concern for fans who are very vocal about that being a concern?
Yep, I will. Sorry, just sending a tweet. I was replying to, that's why I was smiling. I was replying a guy with my typical sarcasm. So I just reported that Cal Peterson has a 1-year, one-way $775,000 contract. So he's like one way, and I go, you could bury that, so it comes off the cap completely if he's in Iowa. So I said, unless you're helping Craig pay the $775 in Iowa, who gives? Don't sweat it. Like fans just get up in arms about everything. So Tarasenko, I mean, where do I see him slotting in? He is going to get, as Joe reported the other day, John Hines is going to go down to Florida and tough gig, and he'll turn that one lunch or dinner into a week.
Bring his family down there too, stuff like that.
Like all of a sudden, Billy really hitting off with Tarasenko. I'm gonna spend like 2 or 3 extra days here on the beach. So that's a good sign. I mean, we just saw Mike Sullivan do that with Mika Zibanejad. We see coaches do that a lot with players that they go to a new place and they got to sit there and try to get that guy in line. And I'm sure Quenneville just recently did that with Kreider as well. I think that's a good thing. They're going to give him every opportunity because I think the one thing that they realized or they're betting on is that it just was not the right fit in Detroit. He didn't play a lot in the top 6 and so they're going to give him every opportunity to play in the top 6. And look, I mean, first of all, he looked incredibly good yesterday. I know we're talking to him on a Zoom, but he looked fit as a fiddle. Certainly suntanned, so he's definitely going out on the water or golfing every day. And he, he's somebody that I think that they want to keep on his off wing because that's where he really seems to flourish, is playing on that right side. So then the question is, how does it work? Is it Rossi or Eriksson Ek next to him? And then on the left wing, do they put Boldy there, who we have seen Boldy play really well on the left side? But I think they love Boldy with Kaprizov right now, so they put Zuccarello there, which makes a lot of sense if Zuccarello's okay playing left side, and then you have a guy that can maybe put the puck on the platter for Tarasenko, and we see how Zuki has eyes in the back of his head and has this wavelength with Kaprizov, and maybe he could develop that with Tarasenko. So look, I have not been in, like, I covered that Florida run a couple of years ago when he played third line with Lundell and Luostarinen. He seemed to lose a lot of puck speed, did not have a lot of offensive chances. I didn't see him a lot in Detroit last year, although I feel like one of the games he scored against the Wild, maybe I'm totally wrong on that. And it just feels like it's a good bet to make. Again, it's not our money. Craig's got to be the one to pay the 4.75. So if it doesn't work out, you could look at that. It really, with their cap space situation, I don't think it's affecting too much. They still have enough to pay Rossi whatever he's going to eventually earn here, whether it is matching that offer sheet or negotiating a contract under his own volition. So we'll see.
I think another part of that too is, I think like Scott was mentioning, just where does it mean for the young players like Ohgren or Yurov? And and I think that
I mean, Sturm more affects Yurov, right? The question is, does Rossi get traded? Because they really like, they like Hartman in the middle. So right now, they're expecting they're expecting that Yurov's going to have a transition. So like when I put him at 13th forward yesterday and 5th line center, I didn't look at the mentions, but I'm sure that jumped out to people. But that's where he's gonna probably have to start, and then he'll work his way up. There could be injuries in camp. Maybe they shuffle things around that they like. Maybe he looks in camp like he's unbelievable. So things could change, but that's where he is right now. In terms of Ohgren, I mean, like right now, I would love him over Johansson. I think they're going to start JoJo on the third line. And we'll see where it goes. Ogren's going to have to work his way up. Obviously, Wallstedt's going to be the backup unless Peterson outplays him, because Wallstedt technically doesn't earn doesn't need waivers, but I don't think they want to pay him 2-2 in the minors. And who's the other one that we're forgetting? And then Juracek and Boyum are going to be, it looks like, in the lineup, as long as they don't look like me in training camp. So.
And I'm going to kind of pivot here too. I got to ask, because I see everyone commenting on, the CBA doesn't go into effect until next year. Get all these contracts in now. Oh, John Tavares deferral on his new deal. Like, it's okay. He's getting it in before the new CBA. Why is that different than what happened to the Wild with Parise and Suter?
Totally agree with you. That's why I sent a source from the league that when I wrote that story the other day, that the general rule is that everything now is is under, because here's another one. Like, technically, like, the one thing I wanted to know is if Kaprizov signs now, we've never known the cap past 1 year. So is he under the rules? Like, theoretically, I'm just saying, could he get 20% of 103, or does he have to get 20% of 95.5? I'm told it's 95.5, even though his contract technically starts when the cap's 103. So, like, it is weird. I really think the Wild were sort of punitively punished. But the only thing I'll say is that the NHL's rationale there, whenever I asked Bill Daly and those people about it, because this was a Bill Daly thing, is that, and he has said this publicly to me, is that the teams that were warned. So, oh boy, hang on for a second.
Let's wrap then for the free agency piece here, guys. Like, what did you think about Bill Guerin's work here? Like, anything you would have done dramatically differently? Do you like it? Are there things you're still watching for as this all unfolds?
I mean, you'd love him if he could have figured out a way to get JJ Peterka here or something else. I mean, but in terms of the free agents that were out there, I am absolutely for it. I actually, I love Boeser, but you signed Boeser to 7 times 7.5, and now if Tage Thompson is available this year or somebody else, it takes him out of that stuff. So this is why he's doing it. Now he almost went for Boeser, but it would have eventually affected somebody else. Besser's the only one I think he had any interest in. Like he doesn't want to. You don't want to waste $8 million on a long-term deal on potentially Nikolai Ehlers or something, and then that takes you out of something. So I actually think it's better not to get locked up. Take the one, Tarasenko comes off in a year, blah blah blah. So I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I like the Sturm signing. You could have gone to Sean Curley, or you could have got another guy there, at that point. But Sturm, fits the mold. He's an elite face-off guy. He can kill penalties. He's familiar here. Like, I think the fourth line center at that price isn't bad, So that was one need. I don't know how much they've crazy upgraded their center position depth. Like, obviously he replaces Freddie in center face-off circle, so they haven't really given, I don't think, Ek more help than he had last season necessarily. I don't know if that makes sense, but Rossi's your number, unless Rossi trade brings something back in that respect. But Tarasenko's a buy low thing. I mean, our thoughts initially were, hey, go with Patrick Kane. Maybe he would be a guy who can, on a shorter term deal, do it. But he was signed with Detroit.
Yeah, everybody re-signed. Like everybody I wanted them to go get.
Yeah.
Like I would have loved Corey Perry. I know that. Yeah. So I don't know. Sorry, I'm
landing in LA is very fun though if they match up again.
Yep. So
no, like they for what they was available. Like I think they showed some restraint in a sense, that may not have been there in the past, and they got the guys they needed, and it's about time to see these 5 first-round picks and see how they do, and if they can end up doing well, then you don't have to worry about as many big moves. But you need guys on ELCs or cheaper contracts to contribute, even if the cap is going up. So it's time to know what these guys are capable of.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that I'm looking forward to seeing what these guys do. I mean, especially Juracek. Like I find him fascinating. They gave up a lot. We're all sitting there and scrutinizing it without ever really seeing him. The one time we did see him in the lineup that last year, right before he was sent down, he made that unbelievable play.
In Colorado.
Yeah. So let's see it. If they sink or swim time. This is what we really haven't gotten to see. I mean, obviously Boldy and Rossi, but we haven't gotten to see a lot of these guys, and so I think that's smart.
For sure. One last one before we do the Waggle golf question, Mike. Greg Cronin, development campus today. We're going over to talk to prospects. Greg Cronin brought in as new Iowa coach. You got a chance to talk to him and have him on your show on KFAN last week. Just what's your overall impressions, and maybe whether this could be a fit, and what are you looking forward to seeing, I guess, from how this goes in Iowa?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed talking to him. I think it's good that they have accountability down there. I know that a lot of people are just taking gospel for some stuff that were said on podcasts and written about them, but I think that it says something that he could have just sat home and collected his paycheck and decided, no, I want to work, and he's going to Iowa down there. So we'll see. I think he'll bring some structure down there. I think you look at Anaheim last year. I don't know if he gets fired if Joel Quenneville's just not sitting there. I mean, obviously Pat Verbeek wanted to go and hire him and did hire him, and I think that then it kind of makes more sense, because if you look at Anaheim last year, they were one of the most, other than maybe Winnipeg, they were their 21-point increase was as high, near the top of the league, and so they just seemed they got to the periphery of the playoffs, and it just obviously the Four Nations I think took some momentum away from them. But if you look at a lot of their young players, they all improved, especially Jackson Lacombe. He just looked really, really good. I know a lot of people are just, one person says it just becomes accurate. Like, oh, it had nothing to do with Cronin. It was only because of Dostal. Come on, man.
Lacombe had nothing to do with Cronin, but everything that went poorly was Cronin's fault.
But he was on the radio. He admitted that he was probably a little bit, too hard on him. I think he went in there with a flamethrower the first year because that was probably the edict from Pat Verbeek. And then he rode him win, lose, or tie the whole way. And I think that the exit meetings after his first year were harsh, that this is too much, even from the veterans. And I think that, I think that after year 2, I think that he really toned it down, started using guys like Killorn and Gudas and there's one other guy that I know, a Strome, I think he started using sort of the veterans more to deliver the message and wasn't in the locker room not and all that stuff.
Final question brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Today kicks off Dev Camp. Let's hear it, guys. Prospect Foursome. Give me 4 players between the two of you that you're most interested in seeing here at Dev Camp this year.
Well, there's not really a Dev Camp.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a Dev Camp. There's like 9 guys here, right? You know, they're not going on the ice.
Okay.
It's totally different. But I mean, obviously, you know, Joe is Zeev Williams' beat writer. He's said, I'm the only one covering Zeev, so he'll be around him today. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing this young phenom, Benyek. I wish they were going on the ice just so we could see what this guy looks like, because a lot of people have really raved about him and said that, you know, if he was 5-6 inch bigger, that he'd probably be like freaking top 5 pick. That's how talented he is. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Ryder Ritchie is somebody I'm looking forward to talking to. He had such a really quality year. Obviously went to the Memorial Cup. Now is transferred to U.S. College. Is it BC or BU? BU.
Yeah.
So, and he's one of the biggest guys that have done that. And now, you know, you can do stuff like that. So I'm interested in talking to him today about if this is going to become a trend. But yeah, we're not going to get to really see him on the ice. We're going to just have availabilities with him.
I think Riley Height too. Talking to catch up with him, I know with all the success guys like Hunter Haight had last year, we didn't really see Riley Height a lot because he was playing in junior. He'll probably be in Iowa to start this season. Just where is he at? What did he learn from that experience NHL preseason last year, and how far away is he from playing in the NHL? So him, Ryder Ritchie, Zeev, Kupalainen here, I think. Maybe a couple of guys that are a few other guys that are here that were draft picks from previous years. But
yeah, he'd be. I don't even know if we requested him today, but I'd love to know, you know, just what he was thinking going back to Finland, and obviously he had a down year, and you know how much this is going to be, because he's going to be one of the guys that Cronin's going to really rely on and you know, have implemented in Iowa this year. So
nice. Well, I know you guys have been blowing up a little bit on the side here with everything that's going on today with free agency and whatever the Wild have cooking. So appreciate you taking the time. I'll let you guys run and get back to all of your fun.
Awesome. See ya. Sorry if I was distracted during the show. Been a lot of stuff going on. So Scott's got some editing to do. I know Joe's not doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of
not doing it.
Yeah. There were pauses. There were like turnovers. There were all sorts of things. So, all right, cool.
Thank you.